Great. So I would love to actually make this as much of a conversation as possible. Conversation about cloud security, obviously, but more, it's bigger than cloud security. Okay, it's a conversation about how we are supposed to do security, because fundamentally, I think, and that's a lot of what we're trying to do in Wiz, is try to rethink how security is done and why is it so broken. And honestly, we're more fun to make this a discussion. So feel free to actually just ask questions and brainstorm and give me your thoughts and feedback. I'm Ami, the CTO and co-founder of Wiz. Wiz is a cloud security company founded just 5 years ago. And our mission is to try and change the way security is done. That's our goal. And we are a cloud security company. But to be honest, cloud security, in my view, it doesn't stop in just cloud objects, right? Cloud security is not about what we call CSPM, okay? Cloud security is the security of the things that we build, right? Because they run in the cloud. So it covers basically everything you have in the cloud, which is everything, right? So that's why I think the story here is not about cloud security, it's about how we do security. Now, when I think that cloud specifically does change the way we do security, I think there's a few reasons, so I want to explain like why fundamentally I think things have changed, but we didn't change the approach to security, right? So basically, everything in cloud is agile, right? You have code and it ships to the cloud all the time. Everything is very dynamic, very connected, right? When I think about an application, right? Where's the application actually, where does it live? So it lives in the cloud, right? But it's also, it has an origin in the code, right? And it's getting built in the pipeline and it's continuous, right? And there is different teams that are responsible for different parts of this. But eventually, if I think about an application, the application is the combination of all of those components together, operating together like an orchestra, right? But every part of this has maybe a different team that owns it, and also maybe different security issues that can come from it. But you have to think about this as one. This is the application, right? Now, when we think about the role of security, in my view, the role of security is to connect two different personas. On the one hand, the attacker. That is one persona. The attacker that wants to attack your application, right? This is the person that I need to understand how they're going to operate, what they're going to do. This is what I call the attacker view. The attacker, they don't care about the different parts of our pipeline or the different teams we have in security, right? The attacker looks for attacks. That's what they do. So attacker, I call it, the attacker doesn't care about the org structure, right? Why do I say that? Because many times security teams, they care about org structures, right? Many times even more than they care about other stuff, they care about org structures. But attackers don't care about org structures. It means that they try to look for an attack, right? Many times an attack would actually be a combination of stuff that actually are across different teams in the security organization, okay? So think about it. The purpose of security is to be one step ahead of the attacker, okay? So we need the attacker view, and the attacker view is not based on different teams. The attacker sees the application as a whole. So who in the security organization sees the application as a whole? Today, no one, because we don't have the attacker view, right? So that's problem number one. We don't understand the real problems because we don't see the attacker view. Now, the other problem, which is also very severe, is what are we supposed to do in security in cloud? We have the attackers, and on the other side, we have the developers, right? So the developer view, that's the other view, which also doesn't care about all of the different types of security tools. The developer also has a need for a developer view, which is a bit different from the attacker view, but it also is a completely different view from the different security tools you have. What is the developer view? So think about it from a developer side. So you might have today a lot of different tools. Those tools are in different categories. You might have a SaaS tool, and a DAS tool, and a tool scanning container images, and you maybe have an ASPM, and you have a DSPM, and AISPM, and CSPM, and KSPM, and like it's like a lot of tools, right? And then you have an EDR, and you have a network scanner, and so all of those great tools, okay? Think about it from the developer perspective. So for the attacker perspective, obviously this is not good, okay? Because no one sees the problem. But what about the developer perspective? What the developer feels, right? So they feel very bad because they feel like a lot of different problems or tasks or tickets or balls fall on their head, right? So think about it from a dev perspective. I'm a dev, and I just get swamped with just a lot of issues, right? And I don't even understand what I'm supposed to do because it's just, so many different things. So it's both problems together. You start understanding why it's broken. So attacker view is missing today, and developer view is missing today. And the whole goal of security is to understand the attacker view and explain that view to the developer. That was supposed to be the role of security, which today it's not. It's not what security tools do. They don't take the attacker view and translate that to the developer view. And what I say now translates across like 20 different markets in security, right? API security, AI security, it's a container image scanning, vulnerability scanning, SCA, DAST, SAST, secret scanning, data scanning. Like all of those are just more balls that you run and you use, external scanning, like application scanning. But it doesn't make sense. We need attacker view, we need developer view, and we need to connect them, right? And that's why like security is broken, and we need to understand more than that. And that's where I actually want to hear you also. Is like I feel this problem, we have to speak about it. It's bigger than a company, okay? Because as everything moves to self-service, to vibe coding, and like everyone becomes developers, just the ratio of developers to security gets more crazy every day, right? Now everyone on the team can build applications in an hour, right? The ratio, the speed of building applications gets more crazy, right? We need to have a mind shift in the way we do security. It's a transformational mind shift. It's not like a small change. It's like we cannot continue to operate in the classic model of security. We cannot. Like this waterfall model where we have a lot of tools and then we try to translate them and then we try to chase people to fix them. Okay, this is not going to work anymore. It's just like, it's like a fundamental operational model, and that's what we keep talking about in Wiz, like operational model of security. And that's why I'm saying it's not about a product, it's about the industry. It just doesn't work anymore. It doesn't scale, it does not work. So that's what we have to change the way that we approach security, to make it more self-service, right? But to make it much, much, much better, because we are failing in three things today. One, we don't have the attacker view. Two, we don't show the developer what they need to do. And three, we don't scale. So, like, we need something that solves all of those three problems together, right? That allows you to focus on the attacker view, show it to the developer, and actually step aside so you are not, as a security team, you are not the scale issue, right? And that's, for me, when I look at security, the biggest challenge of the industry. And that's why we are in the business, and that's why I feel like every team, every security team should think for their existing stack, how can we be more attacker-focused, developer-focused, and more self-service? Any thoughts? So I will take this as agreement. Yes. Yeah, so the question was, okay, this is all great, but how do I know who owns the problem, right? If I want to move to a self-service model, right? So I'll ask you a question, right? and that's why I always say like security should be more like finance, okay? Because someone pays. Oh, okay, that's good. Someone pays for the resource, right? I'm sure that finance knows where to go, right? So I'm just saying, you need to have cloud governance, not just because of security, okay? You need it for a lot of reasons, and I'm sure that it's not like you have a finance team that just pays for everything on their own, right? So in the same concept, you need the owners, you need owners for finance, and you need owners for security, but the point is that the basic problem that security and finance should solve is who owns this, right? And by the way, a good governance concept is that if someone wants to create a new project, please tell me automatically who owns this from security, who owns it for finance questions, right? This is like basic stuff. It's more important than any other tool you have, just basic stuff. Like every resource, who owns it for security, who owns it for finance, right? And again, that's even before speaking about any security features, okay? In my view, and again, for me, I don't care. It's not about even which tools you choose, okay? It's more about a fundamental change of concept in the security, but the problem is not the security team. The change has to happen also in the developer community, in the executive, in the board. This goes up to the company and the way you approach security, right? So it's not like about a specific tool or about the security team. It's a mind shift you have to do with all of the users of the cloud, right? Because eventually, a way to solve all of this is by taking the scan system, scan everything all the time, translate for every team what needs to be done, and give every team the right problem they have to fix with the right context with the right information, right? That could be a good solution, but for that you need, first of all, before even deploying a system, you need the ability to agree with everyone that you own your applications and you have to fix the problems and I don't have to chase you. And then if I have a system that can translate every problem to the right team, that could get us closer to a solution. Now, if I have to summarize like the way it should work, a problem comes, it's an attacker view problem. It can be any problem. Eventually, the system can help you say, these are the relevant teams to fix it. These are the owners, right? They should fix it, and we monitor it. It can be a risk. It can be a vulnerability. It can be a malware. It can be a SAST alert. It can be a dust alert. It can be something in the sensitive data exposed to the internet. It doesn't matter, right? The whole point is that it doesn't matter. There's so many different types of risk. It doesn't matter. The system has to be able to find the problems, route to the right team with the right context. Now, trying to summarize all of that, thinking about where security should go, right? It's basically the understanding that security needs to stop being so vertical, okay? What does it mean vertical? We think about security in the wrong way today, okay? So for example, when people talk about SEA, okay? What is SEA? SEA, you say SEA is something that I deploy to scan my code, right? But it doesn't make a lot of sense. Why are we saying that SEA has to scan in the code? I mean, the application is horizontal. The application lives in production. The code defines it, but it actually lives in production, right? SEA, you should have done SEA in production. I mean, in production, you know what's actually the code that is actually running, right? And you know what libraries are actually being used, right? And then you can decide if you have SEA libraries that you should fix, right? So there's actually nothing you're supposed to do just on code, because it doesn't make any sense. The code is not it's just their origin. If you think about it, the application lives across the code, the cloud, and the runtime all in the same time, right? So horizontal security means that when I do something, I'm trying to do it across all of those layers together, right? Because if I want to decide if I need to prioritize, the question should be, is it actually running? Or the other side, if I want to fix something, the question should be, who owns it? And the ownership is actually usually in the code, right? And the fix is usually in the code, right? So this combination between the code and the cloud and the runtime, it just means that we have to approach security a bit differently now. We shouldn't think about tools that are like an EDR that runs on the workload. why do you need an EDR that runs on the workload? Maybe the workload is a cluster node, and it runs a lot of services, right? And each service is owned by a different developer, right? And the developer knows a lot about what's actually supposed to be running, right? So it doesn't make sense to look at everything vertically. You need to think about the application, the service catalog, the way services are built, right? So all of that is horizontal. That's how developers see the world. They see it horizontally, and also attackers see it horizontally, right? And this concept changes the usual way we look at security tools, and also security teams, and also security structure. Usually we have different teams inside a security organization. This can change the way that you even build your security team, right? Maybe you don't need cloud security and application security teams anymore. Maybe it's one problem. Why do we split the teams, right? When you split the teams, you create politics. When you create politics, you actually hurt security, right? And you hurt operations, because each team needs to choose a different tool. So that's a counterintuitive state. So I want to hear your thoughts. Like this, again, for me, this is not about Wiz. It's about the way the security industry should operate, right? It doesn't make sense to keep thinking about things so much vertically. It's not efficient. It's not the way attackers operate, and it's not the way developers operate. So no one operates like that except for security tools. So we just need to change that. Yes. Any thoughts? I want to hear the crowd, because that's yes. Any ideas? Because I think this is bigger than, again, it's not cloud security, right? This is relevant for API security. It's relevant for SAST. It's relevant for Dust. It's relevant for AppSec. It's relevant for SCA. It's relevant for vulnerability management on operating systems. Basically, everything is horizontal. Even vulnerability management on the base image. The base image comes from code, right? So you want to do both at the same time, right? Everything is horizontal. Think about it. Even attacks are horizontal, because the process has to come from somewhere, right? And you need to ask the question: is it coming from my code or not, right? So basically, if you think about the world of security, we need to start shifting the way we operate, right? And this is relevant for almost everything we do in security, everything, right? It's relevant for how we do secret scanning, how we do data analysis, everything. So that's, for me, if I have to summarize like the biggest change and discussion that we should have as an industry, is how do we start shifting towards this model? And how do we move all of that to become more self-service across all of our companies? And in Wiz, that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to basically say, let's build a platform that understands everything all the time. Scan everything, everywhere, all the time. So I can give the foundational infrastructure for all of the security teams and developer teams to become sort of this language, right? That translates between everyone, right? So I think there's no other way, because otherwise, if you invest, let's say you have a product that scans IAC files in your pipeline, right? That's a very narrow scope of a project. Like, why do you scan only IAC files and only in the pipeline? You need to scan IAC files in the code and in production, and you should have the same policy across all of the places, right? It just doesn't make any sense. Whatever you do, even if you just want to scan IAC files, you should be doing that across all the places in the same policy, right? With the same tool. So that's why, like, our push and our focus is to figure out how do we give everyone a single view, right? Because if you can do that, you get answers on ownership, you get answers on priority, you have a single process for everything you do. And this is most of the time that SecOps, SecDevOps, security teams waste is actually just creating the connections between all the tools, right? And then chasing the developers to fix. It's basically like 90% of the time, right? Prioritization, creating the connections, finding the owner, it's just not efficient. So I know we're at time. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you around.